Okay, so we got a couple of mics coming around, so whatever questions that you have. Go right ahead.
This is a question for Mr. Willis. Do you estimate how much you spent on your pre-marketing?
It was around $400, and that was just for the Subway gift cards, and yeah, it was about $400. And but with that said, everybody can't get a damn gift card, so you gotta be the person that when they get off the elevator, you know, I walked in and I cased the joint first, and I'm pretending like I'm one of the RNC people. I rolled up to the top floor. Who was my point person? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was about $400. We had an influx of about 25% at both of my locations, and from that, we still got a 5% bump of people that's still coming from that.
Oh, this is Tom Doriraj again from Patra. My question is for Ms. Miles from the event. So, did you guys run any metrics around or reporting around how much you know, the waste got diverted to landfill versus recycle versus even if there was any composting to begin with? So I'm just trying to understand, is anything running around data points? I mean, obviously, there's influx of people in Philadelphia. I assume there's a lot of additional, for example, to give an example, like waste management would have added more resources and pickup points or whatever it may be, right, to compensate and make sure that, you know, everything is getting cleaned up and sorted properly. So did you guys, overall, did you guys do any kind of metrics around from an event standpoint or event plan standpoint?
I'm sorry, I heard some of what you said, but some of the specific metrics or data points you asked for, I didn't hear. It was echoing a little bit. Can someone repeat the data points that you were asking about?
Right. So how much got diverted to a landfill versus recycle versus composting?
Okay. We didn't collect around the recycling and the composting and all of that. That was done at a much higher level at the host committee, and the actual DNC were requiring that. Now, for the event that we did, we did follow those principles. So like we used sustainable bamboo and, you know, like so we did choose vendors that ensured us that they would meet the requirements or the goals of the DNC.
But how do you mandate them? How do you make sure that they did the right product line?
Well, depending on who it is. So for me, I'm talking a caterer. So most of them have a policy. You have to have a certain level of a trust system. So if you're talking about a caterer that does, so Star Catering is a huge catering outfit in Philadelphia. I mean, if they put it out there and they put it in their contract and their agreement, so that's one thing we would put in the agreement that they agree to do so. It would be on all of the levels of, you know, whatever. And then also if the venue has a policy, that's another thing. We would choose a venue that has a policy that's already, again, a known entity that we trust. So.
Hello, this is Alan Goodman, owner of Goodman's Desserts. And Mazda, I'll send you a special shout out since I'm a fellow Philadelphian. So good to see you, and I'll be in touch. So my question is, I guess for the three of you, I heard some mention of how you marketed ahead of the DNC. I guess what would be the most effective way, in your opinion, from each of you on how you got the word out about your business?
What kind of business do you have again? I think it depends on your business.
I have a dessert business.
A dessert business?
Yes.
Okay. So I think two things, very much what Waverly said. So you can serve both businesses and consumers. So I'm just going to jump in. I know my counterparts who are also savvy business people will, but I'll say I'm a service-based business that is obviously B2B. I think for you, because you can sell to both, I think that you should do both. Like, so Waverly was really smart about how he got to consumers. He got to the 50,000, right? So that they would come and get their hair cut. But for me, I was specifically sending things to my hospitality partners in the industry because I do business with other businesses. So I did my research around, I knew who was going to be on that host committee, or at least who was going to be working it. I was having conversations. I was having lunch meetings that were off the record way before there was anything to be said on the record. So I think from a B2B standpoint, you have to do that. And I think Alicia said the same thing. She was maintaining relationships with her current customers and having those conversations in advance. So to me, I don't do a lot of like advertising or marketing. I'm very relational. I think that like 90% of my business is referral based. So I was having conversations and lunches and drinks with folks.
For me, like Mazda said, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, like Mazda said, we have an organization called Destination Cleveland, and I definitely made friends with those people. They probably thought I was a creep because, you know, I'm popping up at the office all of a sudden. If I had a dessert business, trust and believe, leading up to this event, everybody in that office would have some of my most succulent desserts.
I agree.
Right. Who's ever in charge, or the people, like the man next to the man, that entity next to the people coming into town, they need to be your friend.
Yep.
Or you need to be there.
I would also just add really quickly, because he mentioned about giving stuff to Destination Cleveland. Ours is Visit Philly or Discover PHL. We have two organizations that do tourism and hospitality in Philadelphia. But for my events, I actually hired local businesses. A part of it, because they were so big, we were so big about ensuring that people experienced authentic Philadelphia. I was not about to let just the big shots and the nationals and all those people take over everything, and the large, huge chains everywhere. Don't get me wrong, we love them, but there are people in your city like you that have a great product. And so we wrote it into the agreement at the venues that they had to allow us to also bring in 20 to 30 local small business restaurants and dessert folks, so people actually got to taste Philadelphia in addition to the larger caterer. So again, make friends with your, you know, like he said, with your Convention and Visitors Bureau, make friends with your venues, all those folks that can make friends with your event planners, because we're the ones going to call you.
Thank you. I just have a hopefully a quick question. Is there a need for someone, for myself, I'm a public speaker and an author, but my question is there a need for someone to be more engaging, to have that relationship, maybe work with introductions or being a host or hostess? Because I really believe like this DNC is really relationship based. And so is there actually a need for someone to be that face of a particular area or particular service area or whatever to welcome individuals into the city and to create, is there a platform for that?
In my opinion, I think you should, like Mazda just said, you need to get with the committees, the entities that are planning this. I mean, because some people have different talents. You know, I know great guys that can cut hair, but if you put them in front of a crowd, they would crumble. You know what I mean? So obviously that's your God-given talent, and you need to put yourself in front of the people that are having the event. So like Mazda said, the event coordinators, the committees, things of that nature. Somebody needs you, because some people just want to do what they do. They want to just bake their cookies, pies. They want to do this or do that, and they don't want to be in front of a crowd. So you need to find, that's your niche. You need to find the people or right entity to help you out. I think Cheryl could probably help you out with that.
I would agree. I know that I booked a lot of entertainment for a lot. And everybody for our parties and everybody, I wasn't looking for just the big names. I did book some of the big names, but there were times, first of all, that the big names, I had a real serious situation to protect the guilty. I won't say who it was, but we had a no-show, right? And I had to work through that during my event. A contract signed, big name, all of that. So I would have, and I did tap someone local to get me out of that. And there were other things also where I did hire local talent. So there's room for you.
Yeah, I would say get in touch with your local entertainment companies, local talent agencies now. People don't know you have your talent unless you start putting it out there. And again, it comes back to those building connections, building relationships, maintaining relationships. You have to keep having these conversations and reminding people, hey, I'm out there. Also, speaking of what Waverly said, Instagram stories didn't exist in 2016. We didn't get it till 2017. So you need to be on your platforms now live, streaming from places in Milwaukee. Like, this is the biggest thing that's going to happen tourism-wise to you guys in a long time. Believe me. Yep. Cleveland lit up, and if we would have had these, we had plenty of social media then, don't get me wrong, but now it's all about video. And you have to, if you are not that person that's comfortable, standing in the middle of a public space with a phone in front of your face being like, hey, I'm Alicia, blah, blah, blah. You have to find that person who's not afraid to put themselves out there. So the fact that you're that person, be that influencer for that company. You can start really branding yourself as let me tell your story. And again, these people might not even know they need this yet. So keep that in mind.
Love it.
Fun evening. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for the host committee? No?
Yes, I think it's really good to just watch how proactive everyone is. That's been given a video today that business isn't going to come to you. You're going to have to go to the business. So really appreciate all your stories today. Any other questions?
And there's one back that she's already.
I have one question for the speakers. How did you secure your money up front? Did you just write really high deposits, or how did you structure it?
For me, it was all in the agreement, and we went back and forth on the agreement, so we were happy. And that, again, I have to say, I know it's a big opportunity, and as business owners, sometimes when it's such a big opportunity, we stray away from what we know is the right way to conduct business. Don't do that. Shortcuts equal pay cuts. I had a sales trainer years ago, and that's etched in my brain. Shortcuts equal pay cuts. If you usually have a certain system with your contract and how deposit schedule and payment schedule and all of that, do that now. So for me, it was in the agreement. It was very clear in the language of the agreement that we were going to receive monies and then pay out monies, not send. I didn't have $2.5 million laying around anyway. So I didn't have it anyway, but I was very clear that I wasn't going to do it, nor was I going to extend myself from a debt perspective, because I could have for that. That was my choice. So it was in the agreement.
For us, we have policies in place that if you are a new customer to us, the order must be paid in full before it leaves our warehouse. So that kind of saved us between anybody who was a new to us, out-of-town client. Again, we were working with so many of our regular customers that we already have a credit program set up with them and regular payments occurring. But if they were getting the vibe that we should get our money in advance, we would send invoices before orders were being delivered as well. So you have to just take care of yourself first. And I'll tell you, we are not good. We are customer forward all day long. And we've been known to be like, oh, you can pay us later. It's fine. That was not happening during RNC. No.
That doesn't apply to me, but if I was in the position, I would definitely follow the lead of these two ladies. They're only going to be there for a week. So if you got extra money laying around, you can send it to me. I'll take it.
My question is surrounding the days of the convention. So I'm getting a lot of requests for booking for the 5 days of the convention, the 12th to the 17th. But what kind of business did you see before and after the weekend? Because we have like that Friday, Saturday beforehand and the weekend after that. So like how we're like, we have 50,000 people, but how many of them were before and after that we can tap into as well. Makes sense?
And what kind of business?
I own a hostel, so I have a hospitality-based business, so room stays. So we're trying to figure out how to price the weekend before and after right now, as well as have some venue space. And I also have a bike shop that also does bike tours as well as bike rentals.
So I'll let them speak first. I can wrap back around. I have venue-specific feedback. I think Waverly will have a different feedback. Go ahead, Waverly and Alicia.
I'm not sure if I heard the question. How did we handle the lead up until the week of the event? Was it something?
She was asking the basically the amount of business on the bookends of the event. Like how was the flow of how much business you were getting before and after versus the actual week?
Okay, well, like I said when I did my spiel here, it's you got the week of the event and it's going to be crazy that week, but you got the pre-weeks or a month before the event where the people need all the comforts of home. They need a place to live. They need a place to eat. They need a place to have their dry cleaning done. They need all the comforts of home. And we got a large influx of Secret Service people, a large influx of sound people, stage people, lighting people. So it wasn't like the explosion of the week of, but it was definitely a nice flow. We saw an uptick that whole month. And then the week is when the tornado or the explosion happened. So get ready for that because it's coming.
Yeah, I will share. I think this is a really interesting question considering we have three very different answers because we have three different viewpoints on this. You know, I think to Waverly's niche, you know, those day-to-day services that people are looking for something to do or they have a need like a haircut, they need somewhere to eat. You're going to see a nice gradual grow right before DNC hits you. For us, it was, you know, again, we're so events specific, but not necessarily like a specific event like Mazda. You know, we saw it kind of hit like 4th of July happened and then, we got to order some napkins. So like it wasn't quite as drawn out, but there definitely was a little bit of buffer before I would say that week of RNC. I will admit once RNC was done, it was done. At least in terms of like the event rental components, there weren't a lot of extra special events being happening. There were probably those people who were still around in town needing things, you know, those day-to-day things, but you know, everyone kind of was moving on to the next big thing.
Yep. From my perspective, from venue specific, one of the things that did happen in Philadelphia that was very hard for our entire community was there was an idea that, you know, all the venues are going to be bought out and that there was just going to be, you know, parties everywhere. And even us as an events company, we thought that thank God we got the big fish, right? Because if we were depending that we were going to plan a ton of events because all these corporations were going to have ancillary parties and blah, 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 it did not happen. There were venues, just being candid, that were hurt by that. They were holding space. They did not get that business. So that happened during, that happened before, that happened after. So I would be cautiously optimistic, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in the basket that suddenly, you know, it's going to be this huge. I think that the venues that did get things, pretty much, they were the things that were contracted directly by the DNC or the host committee. There weren't a ton of like corporate parties outside. There were some, but not a ton. So I think that, you know, make sure you get your name out there, do some of the guerrilla marketing that Waverly did if you really want to be in the number, but be aware that it's not just going to fall in your lap. And also be aware about taking your venue offline in advance based on history. Like I said, there were a lot of companies that had their venues or, you know, organizations had their venues on hold for months and they didn't get the business. The business did not show up.
during the Harley. Hosting during the Harley event in Milwaukee and Airbnb, I didn't book up, and I was really surprised because we expected so many people. Not sure what happened, and people asked if my Airbnb is booked already for the DNC. The books are not open for it because I don't know what route I'm going yet. I did have it open at one point, but I was trying to basically way overprice myself to see if it would work, and it didn't. One question I have, how much for the middle people, like kind of the before and after, the people that we really need in the town or that are coming in not just for those 5 days, but how much are those people, nationally speaking, willing to pay per night for a place to sleep? Like, we're trying to figure out how to price ourselves fairly.
That is something I have no idea about.
So I won't be able to give you exact numbers because, again, this isn't necessarily my niche, but this was definitely a problem in Cleveland. And again, being Midwest, we're very, very similar. So I'll tell you, at the time, my mom was a real estate agent, and everyone all of a sudden had a vacation house that they could escape to, apparently. And they were putting their houses up in Greater Cleveland up as Airbnb/rentals, and exorbitant costs, like crazy, crazy money to rent. My mom had up to 24 listings, and none of them booked for RNC. So, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but again, it's just this point that it's a big deal, but it's not your biggest deal, right? So it's do some research what you can. Especially if you're working for like a big corporate, entity, like reach out to somebody in Cleveland, I think would be a great option, and be like, hey, what did you guys start at? What did you end up booking at? And maybe even if you were an independent Airbnb renter, maybe just see if you can connect with fellow Airbnb renters in other Midwest towns that have hosted stuff like this. People get money grabby, and we saw it in our niche of the industry where rental companies were jacking up prices and delivery costs, and we came back to it and said, you know what, at the end of the day, we're pretty much working with our regular clients, our day-to-day people who know and love us for what we provide on the regular, and we're not going to screw it up by charging an extra 10% or doubling our delivery fee. And I think that made people love us more in the long run, and we had people come to us because our competitors were jacking up their prices too much. So keep that in mind. I know it's tempting. Do it accordingly. Don't get me wrong. Like Waverly said, get your money, but it's one of those that it can really bite you in the long run, and you'll end up with empty spaces. That's the worst thing that can happen in this time period. I'll be 100% honest with you.
Yep.
I think just on my end, if I could piggyback on that, we did get some people that came in from other barbershops. I guess they wanted to hike the price up of their service, and my staff asked me, were we going to hike our prices up? And I said, no, we're at a reasonable rate now. We're going to make more money because of the volume of people. It's already a blessing. And so we stayed the same as all time, and it worked out in our favor. And to what she said, I do know people that all of a sudden their home in the hood in Cleveland, Ohio became an Airbnb, go figure. And they didn't get any people. So, be honest, just do a good, solid service, and you'll be good.
I agree. I just want to piggyback really quickly, just because I do have a different type of business, and I realized there were 2 tips I wanted to give for those that may be in the events or the production industry around your pricing. 2 things that I don't want you to forget to include in your pricing are, number one, your staffing. You're going to have to staff up way more for this event in terms of actually you producing the event, the number of bodies you're going to have on site. Number 2, if you are managing operating funds, consider the tax implications of that and build that into your fee. I did, and I'm very happy I did. If I hadn't, I would have been out of pocket about $15,000, $20,000. That's a lot of money. And the third thing is especially, and this may apply to a number of things, there were union agreements that were made, and I don't know how Milwaukee and Wisconsin is, but there were union agreements that were made at the highest level levels that affected how we could produce the event, who we could work with, things we could purchase, what the cost of those items were. So those are questions to ask and to be very aware of and to consider in your pricing if you're in the position like me.
Right. I have one question for the host committee, or the current host committee. I think the same question what I asked Ms. Miles. Do you know who can I talk to regarding getting the metrics of what was done 4 years ago? Just to understand, how it would be effective, in terms of waste management and also an opportunity for Milwaukee to showcase, okay, for the first time DNC is going to be green or whatever level of, environmental thing that we want to project Milwaukee and also have the momentum right going forward. So who would be the best person I could talk to and see if they could get from historical data?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So sustainability is one of our top priorities, and we actually do have a consultant working around the clock to be thinking about sustainability with the convention in our communities. So if you don't already have our business cards, we can connect you with our colleagues who are working on that and see how you two can partner. But also, I do emphasize as well registering on our portal as a supplier too, so they're aware of you that way as well. Thank you.
And for the people that's worried about the numbers and the metrics of things of that nature, I would suggest that you reach out to the people in Philly that handled that stuff, as well as here, Destination Cleveland in Cleveland. And you can have a one-on-one conversation with the detailed information as far as numbers.
I just want to jump in because they mentioned signing up as a vendor on the vendor list. We did that. I would 110% recommend doing it. We definitely got business because of being in that listing. And because again, what do we all do? We all jump online, right? Like we're not, as much as we keep telling you, please reach out to people, we're all going to jump online first, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
That's what we're just naturally used to now in 2019, and it's going to be the same in 2020. So make sure you are as smooth as you possibly can be with your website, your social media. You have to look legit in your online presence. If you haven't done that, it is time. I will, as a marketing director, this is the biggest thing I can tell you is please be ready online for next year.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I have to agree. I did the same thing. I was holding off on revamping my logo, my website. I did it before this, and I'm so glad I did. And the same thing on that vendor list. We hired a lot of vendors off that vendor list for this. And yeah, and we didn't really get calls because of the type of business I'm in, but that's who I went to for like the 40-something caterers and restaurants that I hired. It's who I went to for entertainment. Like that was a starting point for everything for us.
And as for me, I'm probably one of the only barbershops that bothered to spend 10 minutes registering on the vendor list. And we did get some people from the vendor list. Most of it is from my aggressive marketing now. But we're probably the only barbershop in Cleveland or anywhere that got a Facebook page, Instagram page, Periscope, Twitter, LinkedIn, Urban Cuts Barbershop has a LinkedIn. So I want to be able to be found under any rock that you turn over. So, but yeah, I would definitely echo what Alicia and Mazda said. Get on the vendors list. It's only going to take you a few minutes.
Yep.
I just have a very brief question. Were you guys surprised by any people that were coming to your city to visit? Were there a lot of families? Were there a lot of students? I automatically just think corporations and businesses and people who are obviously really involved in politics, but in terms of tourism, I'm just trying to think outside the box of how my business or any other partnerships we may have could get involved in different ways we could touch with the community, but people who would be coming here that I might not think about automatically.
There was definitely tourism in Philadelphia. I mean, for sure. For sure. Our city did light up. Like I said, the businesses complained a little bit about all those corporate buyouts we thought, but I think the reason that Waverly was so successful is because he actually capitalized on the consumers and the tourism, and that really worked for him. So
we got the best of both worlds. To answer your question, it was a surprisingly number of tourism people. It was just regular, moms and dads and the kids for that week, just to because Cleveland was so close to the city, or it wasn't a huge demographic. And yeah, so we got the best of both worlds.
I didn't have as much direct experience with this as everyone else, I would say. But I know from vendors such as like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had a huge uptick in visitors. A friend of mine actually owns a bike tour company, and they were solidly busy that week. So I don't know necessarily the demographics, but this is a tourism thing, right? Like it's everything. It's an economic driver, right? So if that many people are coming to town, it's tourism. End of story. So people are, yes, they may. Think of it as any conference, right? Like you're in a conference room from 9 to 5, but there's a life outside of that. You got to eat. You got to do other stuff. You got to sleep.
Yep.
So if you have anything to offer when people are awake or are sleeping, you've got something to offer to DNC 2020. So it's just keep doing what you're doing. Just know more people are going to be in town, so you have to be ready to. And it may be in the moment, it may be before when they're planning, because dad's a super delegate, let's take everybody with us to Milwaukee for this family vacation. Or it just may be because they're media, you know, and that was one of the best things I think for Cleveland is that we found a lot of media exposure that, you know, we've had the fire, the river that caught on fire, you know, PR that's haunted us for like 50 some years. And I think DNC really helped was maybe one of the biggest things that flipped that, and the media that came out of it and has then supported this new renaissance of, hey, we're not the city that's constantly on fire. Good news. So it's really, you are a face of your city. Like if you were in the service industry, you are a face of, you know, DNC 2020. So be that face and do the best possible job you can, and know that it could be for anybody for any reason. You don't know who's going to show up in some aspects, really, unfortunately. Sorry.
My question is for the host committee. Are you guys openly supporting Airbnbs, and how are you supporting them?
Sure. So for the host committee, we actually don't manage the housing, transportation, security process by any means. That's our sister organization, the DNCC. So if you want to touch base with one of us afterwards and get our cards or email us, we can definitely connect you to the right people for that.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because I spoke with one directly and they said they do not support Airbnb at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, I personally can't speak to that. So if you want to touch base with me afterwards, I can definitely answer some of your other questions.
Yes, as a mobile restaurant, I'm thinking about how wild maybe they can share some experience as well, but even for the host committee, how is it with the security lineup as far as, let's say, if there's some parties and stuff going on downtown and I know nobody's going to be sleeping at all, and I want to get to that hot spot, will there be a place where there are designated parking spots, but that's like food truck season? So would there be a place where I just got to take a gamble and say, okay, well, I'm parking on the east side, I'm not leaving, you know, I'm just going to stay right here, smoke up meat, and take advantage of the midnight hours?
I can share I can share in Cleveland that there were three, there was sort of like a main security zone, an outside security zone, and then a wider security zone. And that information was really pushed by the city, by the host committee. Everyone knew where those security zones were. And at least in Cleveland, it was very well communicated. So I know it's kind of hard because it's one of those, you got to wait a little bit to know what you're going to be able to do where, especially if it's food truck based, it's so mobile, you need that. These things will come out though, because the transportation aspect is huge. The security aspect is huge. So it is information that does get passed along.
Agreed. It was the same in Philadelphia. It took a moment, but when it came out, it was very detailed, very clear, and everywhere.
Yes.
I'm going to back what they said. I think as the host committee, once again, we don't handle the transportation, housing, security sides of things, but those things, as we know, will be rolled out next year. So we'll be able to get that information over to you. I know food trucks has been a big question, and we're hoping to get food trucks involved as much as possible. The security, I think, is going to be an important part of that. So just stay tuned for when that rolls out. And if you have any other specific questions, feel free to touch base with us afterwards.
And this question is for the host committee. Do you currently have a list or know what RFPs you're going to release and when? Prime example, media or video production.
So currently we have 2 public RFPs and we will have more in the coming weeks and on a continuing basis as well. So one of them or 2 of them being for insurance and construction are more of the recent ones going to be rolling out, but more on a continuous basis. So that's again something you'll have to wait and see as it comes. And if you're registered, that's when we can ping you about it as well. Great.
I think we only have our speakers for a few more minutes. Are there any additional questions that we would like to pose to them?
From a staffing standpoint, obviously hospitality being huge. Sometime in Milwaukee, like if we have Summerfest going on the same time as Miller Park games, is there anything additional that maybe that we should be concerned about from a staffing level, especially in catering and hospitality, finding enough employees to help everything go smooth?
If Milwaukee's anything like Cleveland right now, we're especially in the restaurant hospitality side of things, staffing's been hard just generally. So if you can start to beef up your staff now as much as you can, of course, realistically, financially, and just even if it's on a temporary basis and try to just have that solid group of like, these are my regular people I can always depend on. So when you need to bring in temporary workers for RNC, you have that core group of people that are ready to help you so that you're not the only person. I can't tell you how many venue contacts lately have told me that they've had to depend on temporary talent just because of, you know, need, right? But they walk in and they've never served a day in their lives and they're about to serve a wedding of 500 people. So keep that in mind. You know, really, you can't be everywhere. You have to have your team ready to assist you. So train your people now, get them ready for this type of intense environment, and then let what you've taught them also then be taught by them. Just continue it.
Other questions? Well, we need to let our case studies go. Let's thank you. So if you have additional questions, you can reach out to us at SBDC. We will make sure we can get an answer for you. But also remember, there's 2 computers outside. You can sign up as a venue or a vendor, which means supplier, to make sure you take advantage of that. And if you have additional questions for our host committee, if one have their cards, you can also filter them through and then include. It's outside on the computer. You can, in your packet is the URL under the host community. Okay. So what y'all think? Get what you came for? Awesome. Great information. So what
I will share that this was, I could have not asked for something so detailed, like thinking back, well, oh my gosh, 3 years now, like I wish this was available to this level of detail to us. So, you know, I'm so excited for you all because you have so much more insight than we ever did. And
I agree.
I know Mazda would offer this too, as would Waverly. If we can be of any assistance, whether it's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing about this, or vendor services, anything, let us know how we can be of assistance as well, because we know what you're going through. Let our experience continue to help you.
Absolutely. I just echo what Alicia said. I've been saying to Cheryl the whole time, I did not get this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing that you're doing this. We had no idea we were getting into. I'm sure in the middle of it, I mean, for me, there were moments that I was like, can I do this? Is this crazy? This event is in 2 weeks. I just found out the venue. There were a lot of things just along the process. So I echo what Alicia said. We're here and happy to pay it forward.
So you've got Mazda, Alicia, and Waverly's contact information in your packet. So if you want to reach out, they've all offered. And Waverly had to go. He's actually teaching today. So he took time away from teaching barbering to come talk to you because he thought this was awesome. So on his behalf, thank you for paying attention, asking questions. I think they all had a good time, yes?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to disconnect you guys so you guys get back to your life. and then we're gonna wrap up a little bit here, so.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cheryl.